Good Monday. This is Jay Brew, co-chairman of Seafried and Brew. Well, one of the things that we've discussed is the speed limits that the Fed has set on the economy. And one of the speed limits that they changed here recently, if you remember, is that they were looking at getting a 6.5% unemployment number would cause them to change Fed policy. Well, we got down to 6.3%. And now they've announced a change in terms that they're not just going to look at unemployment based upon that headline number, but they're going to look at a number of different factors. Is this similar than banking, where suddenly you come up to a policy limit and you sit there and say, well, let's change the policy limit so that we're not out of policy? Well, no, I think that what they're doing is that they're looking at the broad indicators of employment, things we've talked about, like labor force participation rate, that when we look at this over time, that essentially you can go back to 1978 was the last time that we were at these levels in terms of labor participation. And when we think about the overall workforce rather than just the people that are employed, that these are at levels that we've suggested before would prevent the Fed from doing any sort of short-term rate hikes. So when we look at that, another one, of course, is the long-term unemployed, 27 weeks and plus. And you can see how it's been. This goes all the way back to 1964 as we've gone through different economies. But look at this in comparison, that the height that we reached in this Great Recession and the effect it's had on those people that have been really long-term unemployed is really quite amazing, hitting a peak in here and moving down, but not getting down to the levels that we've seen in the past. So in this particular situation, this must be concerning to the Fed, because as we've talked about in previous webcasts, are these people actually unemployable rather than just simply long-term unemployed? And what are we going to do about it as a nation to get these people to be more productive? Then we can look at part-time for economic reasons. And you can see, once again, compared to going back to 1964, the level that we're at is still significantly high compared to the past. So when we look at that part-time situation, that is the Fed looking at this as getting down closer to the running average over time in terms of a fully and more productively employed workforce? And so when we take all of these things together, one thing that is interesting, and we talked about in a previous webcast, is the expectation for overall compensation. And what we pointed out based upon surveys is that people do not expect their income to increase in here. And why is that? And this is one of the concerns at the Fed that Yellen has mentioned, is look at the 12-month change in compensation going out in here as we came into the Great Recession, and we really have not had this number head up to where we were previously. So when you look at it in all of these aspects, it really suggests that the Fed is nowhere near to raising short-term rates. And now that they've talked about the other kind of things that make up a workforce in terms of compensation, in terms of the number of people working, part-time workers, we see a broader picture that makes it clear that we're not out of the woods yet. This is Jay Brew, co-chairman of Seafried and Brew. Have a great week.